my body was in that chamber and it was utilized to take my consciousness out of that body to then send it to this lifetime.
And it's like I started seeing these beings around me, surrounding this table. They're aliens. They're not human looking. All of a sudden, I start I'm being shifted out of the table, and I start growing and growing into the room, and I'm right there with them, and I'm like, what's going on?
If we are staying and repeating the same memories and the same actions every single day and believing everything that's said to us, then that's going to become our world. But we don't have to let it be, because we can literally create anything in the quantum field. All possibilities are possible.
Hello, Rising Gems. Welcome to another episode. I am your host, Miroslava, and I am here with...
I am Erica.
And we are so excited to be back with you with another episode. This one is a very juicy one. We had a very long conversation with our friend Alegna. She is the host of the Divine and Human podcast. This is actually a continuation of the conversation that we had with her in her podcast. And so if you want to check that out, you can check the link. It's going to be in the description of this episode. But yeah, Erica, we had a very juicy conversation. Don't you agree?
Yes. If you are into the simulation theory, if you are into quantum physics, if you are into multiple dimensions, if you are into the hologram theory,
the string theory,
yeah, the unknown, the mystical, it was just an amazing conversation that all three of us had. And it's a long one, so get your tea, get your water, get food, whatever it is that, unless you're driving, then obviously don't do that. But yeah, it was just a really, really fun episode that we...
Yes. So if you have your tea ready, your water, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rising Gems podcast.
We are here to inspire and empower those ready to rise and align to their most authentic selves.
Exactly. We are all rising gems, polishing ourselves with spiritual truths to expand our minds and reclaim our shine.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Have fun and enjoy.
Alegna, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, no, awesome. Well, I am actually a spiritual life coach. I work with women, helping them embody their soul magic, embody their authentic self. And I've been on a spiritual journey myself since 2009. I pretty much am obsessed with personal growth and just... I don't know, I love to observe, I love to learn, I love to have really good conversations, and I've connected with Erica and Miroslava a while back, and I love being able to have these very soulful, deep conversations, because so much wisdom comes through every single time we do.
Yes, we're all Geminis, so of course there's gonna be...
I was gonna say that too. I was like, if it matters to anyone, we are all Geminis.
Well, let me ask you guys, because when I heard your podcast name, Rising Gems, I'm like, oh my God, that is perfect. Rising Gemini. Go. Yes. So I don't know, what was the inspiration of the name? Real quick. I don't know if you mentioned it before.
Yeah, so yes, definitely the name is because, Erica and I, we're both Gemini, so the Gemini energy is very strong. But also, we are rising gems. It's that we are gems being polished with spiritual perspectives and information, and we're all rising together. So we wanted this to have different meanings. So definitely because we are Geminis, but then also because we are, gems being polished, and we are all growing together. And this is more so kind of like a collaboration of not just me and Erica, but everyone that is listening, and we're all on this journey together. So that's kind of like what my intention was when I first came up with the name. But I think this was definitely sent from the heavens above, because I think it's definitely perfect for the energy that both Erica and I have. And now you're one of the rising gems too.
I love it. I love that intention. It's so fitting.
Yeah. But anyways, so in our conversation with Alegna in her podcast, we had, again, like we were saying, very juicy information was shared. So definitely go check it out so you can dive into all of those perspectives that were shared there. But at the end, I brought up something that inspired this episode. So this is all about the simulation theory and all about us playing the main character in our story, and maybe, again, this is just a theory, maybe other people being here simply to complement our energy, to complement our story. So before we dive into the conversation, I do want to play a video, the video that I was referencing in Alegna's podcast. Now the link to this video is going to be found in the description of this episode if you want to check it out yourself. And it was created by Philip Siva. It is Filip, last name Zieba, and the username in TikTok is Phil's Pixel. So again, the link is going to be in the description of this episode if you want to check it out yourself.
Ain't no way everyone here is a real person. Life is a simulation and a legitimate professor has proved it. James Gates, a theoretical physicist at MIT with 2 bachelor degrees and a PhD, found literal computer code embedded in the most fundamental building blocks of reality called strings. Now, string theory is a tough one, but I'm gonna break it down for you in a way that an 11-year-old would understand. So if you don't get this, hey, go back to grade 5, bruh. Alright, so we got my boy Einstein's theory of general relativity, which is basically just a theory of everything big. Planets, gravity, the universe, all the way back to the Big Bang. Then we got the new kid in town, quantum physics. This is the theory of everything small, like particles, atoms, and molecules, where the general laws of physics like gravity don't apply anymore. The same is true the other way around. Quantum laws don't apply to regular-sized physics. So we got general relativity, everything big, and quantum physics, everything small. Like, yo, dig. But both of these realms have the same parent, the Big Bang, at which point everything that is now big used to be small. If the small can become big, then quantum and general relativity need some sort of theory that can unify them. That is string theory. What happens to the big when it's small? What happens when you zoom into an atom? You see protons and neutrons in the center with electrons all around it. Now, what about inside a neutron? Even smaller particles called quarks. So how deep does the scale go? Conventional science will tell you there's nothing inside these quarks. But string theory suggests there's a tiny filament or a string of pure energy that exists inside of them. And just like the string of a guitar vibrates and creates different sound based on its shape and tension, the strings in string theory vibrate. But instead of sound, they produce matter in the form of particles. This completely changes the way you look at the world. Every particle in the universe is just a string vibrating at a different frequency, and every vibrational pattern has its own associated particle. So if you break anything down far enough, we're all just energy vibrating at differing wavelengths to form matter. Although it's still just a theory, this would link general relativity to the quantum realm and form what is known as the theory of everything. Okay, yeah, cool. Now where is this computer code found? When Dr. James Gates took a look at a set of equations derived from string theory, he found binary code, error-correcting code used for compressing data on a computer. A sequence of ones and zeros, the same code that is used by popular search engines, which, according to him, who has a PhD in theoretical physics from MIT, doesn't just resemble computer code, it literally is computer code. Meaning, if we break matter and energy down far enough, we eventually find compressing computer code etched into the very fabric of reality. So, who wrote this code? Are we living in, dare I say, a simulation?
Yeah, that's a lot of information.
I loved that so much. As somebody who self-studies quantum physics and I love string theory, I actually was having this conversation with my sister the other day. I'm like, I could see myself being a theoretical physicist. I feel like I can never say that word right. But yeah, I would love to work around string theory because that's the theory that talks into the multiple dimensions. And I loved that so much. I was like, yes. Yep, that's exactly how it is.
It kind of made my head hurt a bit because it's just so much information and it's very like analytic, very much like, quantum physics and all of that stuff. So it can be a lot of information for a lot of people. But I thought it was actually Erica, because the information that he was sharing was so quick. He was talking so fast. So do you feel comfortable giving us a quick explanation of the string theory, of what that is?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to say I'm not well versed. I definitely am not a physicist by any means, but quantum physics is an area that I absolutely love. So the best way that I can simplify everything quantum physics, whether you are talking about string theory or any other area, relativity with Einstein, it's pretty much everything is energy, like literally everything is energy. So what my understanding of string theory is, based on so far the research that I have done, the reading that I have done, is through these strings, they are connected. And that's, where quantum physicists are starting to really get into the multiple dimensions and even higher. They're testing, they're constantly testing to see how far these dimensions go. So they're through this theory, that's where the multiple galaxies, the multiple universes come from. And this is also within the realm of like everything is energy, everything is connected. So that's why, and it kind of goes back to what I was mentioning in Alegna's earlier, where everything has its purpose, everything has its place, because the quantum physics, like you were mentioning, it is the study of the subatomic particles, right? The smallest of the atom. And then with relativity, it's like, that's where Einstein goes into, I mean, there's so much about it, but that's where he goes into the imagination, where the imagination is more real. And it actually goes back to what I was saying into Alegna's episode earlier, where I was reading this sentence from a yogi, and it just hit really well, because he says that everything that is real cannot be explained in words, where everything that is unreal can be explained in words, because everything is one in of itself. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, no, I love that so much too. I love it because I love science just as much as I love like spirituality and stuff. Like, I was just saying yesterday, I was watching Oppenheimer. I went to the movies to watch it, and I was just saying, oh, in another life, I would love to be studying quantum physics right now, or like, all these like really mind-blowing, also very like difficult concepts to understand. But it's so fascinating when the spiritual stuff, like the stuff that when I'm channeling, or I'm connected to like higher wisdom, and I'm doing all the spiritual things and tuned in, when that knowledge comes through like as images and as feelings and as sensations, and it's hard sometimes to put into words, but then you have the science and then the quantum physics, and that brings my mind, at least, like more clarity to put all the pieces together, and the pieces start, the pieces of the puzzle start connecting, and it makes sense and it looks beautiful. I'm like, yes, like it's, so I love it when they mix, because it just gives us such a clear, bigger picture of what truth, or universal truth is, and what our experience really is. And
yeah,
I also love with the string theory kind of, and I'm not averse to, so thank you, Erica, for sharing that, because even though I've heard of it, I didn't really know what it actually is. So I learned a little something today. But I like that what came up for me is when you look at the multi-dimensionality of things, how it looked like on a vertical, like being multi-dimensional on a vertical axis, like where it's the big and the small, and then you can break it down even smaller and smaller and smaller, and there are worlds within worlds within worlds within worlds. And seeing that and experiencing that multidimensionality aspect of the universe, but then also the horizontal, where it's like how there's multiple possibilities and universes that way, how like every choice you make has like infinite number of possibilities, and there's like infinite numbers of timelines, I guess is another way to put it. And then depending on which timeline you are is what you're vibrating or aligning with in that moment. So having that perspective as well, it is kind of mind-boggling when you start thinking this bigger concept of how multi-dimensional reality is. And then the one constant, when like, I guess whenever you're feeling that overwhelmness and it's kind of hard for the mind to really comprehend, I guess for me, bringing it down to, okay, what I do know is true is me, my consciousness, I'm aware in this moment right now, in this point right now. And then like bringing it back to center, because it can be really big to kind of try to understand all of it. So, and kind of a little bit with what Miroslava was saying on my podcast, back to how not everybody is real, and so, there's, I guess, I don't know, like simulated characters in our reality that are not necessarily part of our reality. and really kind of what does that actually, mean? Like, I don't know if you guys heard of this idea of that every person you're interacting with, like you're interacting with one version of them, right? Like we all have infinite version of ourselves, like, and how we're showing up in that moment depending on I don't know, like we're each having, how do I explain this? Because again, like I can picture it. It's very visual for me, but to put it into words is kind of hard sometimes.
I know. I think I know what you mean. It's kind of like there's many different personalities, different perspectives, and different ways that people can show up in our world. And we notice that when we change, and it kind of goes back to what Miroslava was saying, I think in Alegna, in your actual podcast, Alegna, where when we change, we start to see things differently. And the more that we become more like unbiased or neutral, and we stop seeing everyone in the same way that we did prior, what happens is when we shift and we start to see them differently because we're responding to this newer state of consciousness that we're embodying, when we see other people, they're going to show up differently as well into a newer version because we are a new version. So it's kind of like every single time, and we're all different. So like, say for example, I shift and I see both of you differently than I saw you before, but you could still see me in the same view as you did before if you are still embodying the same version of Miroslava in Alegna. Because we have to realize that it kind of goes back into, what I was saying on Alegna's podcast, where, everything is our world. So you can kind of see that everything is pushed out based on how we are inwardly, and there is no right or wrong. So sometimes when we are in a certain space, we can kind of judge it like, oh well, I'm here and like they're there, there's like that comparison, but there really isn't, because that's where this whole game comes in. This is where the simulation comes in. This is where the whole hologram comes in. Everything that we see is because we are choosing to see it, but sometimes we have a hard time really seeing it or understanding it. But through spiritual practice, through, allowing yourself to be open, or allowing ourselves to be open to different ways and different perspectives, we'll start to see things change. I mean, we will start to not only, like the higher that we rise and the more that we are aware that we're especially conscious presence in this now moment is very important to pay attention to what thoughts and what emotions that we're feeling in the moment, because this is what's adding to our story or our film. And it's really hard to explain, but the best way that I can explain it, because this can even go into quantum physics as well and like other science, the more that we rise up, we can start to see how we are manipulating everything, how everything is forming to who we are becoming. It takes practice, it takes determination to be focused on what is coming up, because we can literally create anything. And this goes into the quantum physics, because in the quantum field, all possibilities are possible. The only reason why we think it's not possible is because we are still playing out these programs and these conditionings. All we have to do is be conscious of our thoughts and be conscious of what we're playing out, so we can reprogram them, so we can, show up differently and make different choices. And then when we do that, not only does it become so empowering, we really do see how powerful we truly are, and so it's like letting go of all of these things and being open to different perspectives, because every single person, every single thing has something that we can utilize. And you can kind of see it as like the players in our movie or the players in our game that are presenting themselves, that are offering information that we're getting info from. We also plan that out. So it's kind of like, it's hard to explain, but from an energetic standpoint, we are manifesting all of this to us to show us what needs to shift or how we want our world to look. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So technically, all of this is an illusion. It's not even real. There is no creation and there is no destruction. But in order to play the game, we create it. So it's like, what do we want to create? What do we want to destruct? And it's okay either way what we want to do, because this is our life, this is our world, this is our game. Mm-hmm. So, and thank you both for playing in mine.
This is awesome. And I think this leads us to the conversation deeper into the simulation theory. And I was doing a little bit of research right now just to see what people say the simulation theory is. And according to the builtin.com, that's the website that I'm looking at, they say that the simulation theory is a theoretical hypothesis that says what people perceive as reality is actually an advanced hyper-realistic computer simulation, possibly overseen by a higher being. And one of the people here is saying that it could be the case that the vast majority of minds like ours do not belong to the original race, but rather to people simulated by the advanced descendants of an original race. It is then possible to argue that if this were the case, we would be rational to think that we are likely among the simulated minds rather than among the original biological ones. And I know this is something that a lot of people usually talk about is the simulation theory that, like there is this higher being or maybe an extraterrestrial race that is playing video games pretty much with the people on Earth. And I wanted to get the perspective of the two of you because, Erica, we're talking about how, everything is connected and everything is what we perceive real is not actually real, that it's all just a game. And I also always think of this reality as a simulation or a projections playground, because the reality that we are experiencing is projections of other people that we are perceiving and that we are kind of integrating within our psyche, within our brain, and we are making it real for our own individual experience. And so I wanted to get the perspective of each of you of this simulation theory. If you believe that perhaps there is this higher mind kind of creating this game or controlling the game, or if you don't believe that's what's taking place, then do you even believe that there is a simulation taking place, or what is the perspective that you two have of this?
I believe everything can exist, but I'm also open to exploring and, creating the world that I'm creating with being outside of the box. You like embodying that Uranus like energy, that Aquarian energy of just wanting to be outside the box.
For me, I think a big part of it is being open to being able to let go of your beliefs of what's real or not real and being able to flow with things and be open to different ideas and possibilities and really play with possibility. That really allows you to create outside the box, like Erica was saying, and just have all these different experiences and be able to hold the paradoxes like we were mentioning in the other conversation. I think for me, I do, in a way, it is a simulation or a matrix or, just Maya illusion. It is, the way I like to see it is that this is a game. It is, like Miroslava said, a projection playground. I love that idea, because to me, that's kind of what I see it as well. This is a projected reality. It's not it's not the primary reality to me. It's just we're here having a projected experience and we're playing with physicality. And the way I see it is, on the other side of that, it's kind of like a video game, but I'm the main character in my video game. We're all we're all playing playing the game from different perspectives, different characters, like this very collaborative ginormous game. But I'm here, the character here having the experience, but I'm also the player outside of the game controlling the character. And I'm both the simulated mind and the original mind. And to me, that original mind would be my higher self, my higher aspect outside of this incarnation. And the more I can get caught up in the game, in the simulation, kind of like we kind of talked about in the other podcast, or I can start realizing that I'm actually more than this, and then the game starts to change, and we can start being more in control of our experiences and choosing and having experiences that are outside of the box. And which kind of brings me, Eric, I'm glad that you brought like this Aquarian Uranus energy, because what was coming up through for me while I was listening to both is this idea that we're shifting into the Aquarian age from the Pisces age, where now we're just in the Pisces age, and these are cycles of thousands of years, but we were in this Pisces age where we're navigating spirituality, that Pisces axis, and then also the Virgo axis, because that's the thing, we do live in the universe. We have an experience of polarity, so being able to hold both and it creates that balance and that magic. So really navigating the Virgo, very analytical, very scientific perspective, and then the Pisces, which is like very much in flow and intuitive and mysterious and spiritual, and that this whole energy of religion versus science that we kind of been playing out for a while, and then how now we're moving into the Aquarian age, and is that technology and individualism, and also in navigating our individual self and the collective self, and tapping into things like AI, and as that's coming up, and tapping into that, the weirdness of reality, and navigating that while still navigating like the opposite of that, the Leo aspect, the personality, the individual. And it's just kind of interesting to me how that energy, I feel like it's already like, it's already here and coming in and we're kind of stepping into that energy, especially with this Pluto that's going into Aquarius. So that's, I don't know, I'm kind of getting off topic here with the astrology, but it's just very interesting as we start contemplating what is reality.
Yeah, it's all connected, like we've been saying. I wanted to say, because as I was listening to the two of you talking, I started to go places in my mind and just see different potentials. And one of the things that I remembered is that, because we were talking about the simulation, all of that, is one time when I was doing a meditation, I remember my consciousness going back to another, I don't know if it was like a parallel reality, a different universe. I don't really know, but I just remember my consciousness traveling back to a mothership. And in that mothership, there were a lot of different chambers. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like these chambers in which beings were going into. And what I remember and what I was told is that my physical body was there. In that life, I was a Pleiadian, and my body was in that chamber, and it was utilized to kind of take my consciousness out of that body to then send it to this lifetime in which I am here, Miroslava, in this experience with you. And so that got me thinking, well, is that part of like the simulation? Like, was that me over there playing sort of a game, and my consciousness traveling here to kind of engage with this experience, with this reality, kind of like in the movie Matrix? And I was like, well, that could be a possibility. And then I flew to another different potential, and I had like this whole vision of like, because you said something about AI, Alegna, and I was like, well, what if in the future we did actually start developing a more powerful artificial intelligence, and they did actually at one point start to control humanity, and what we are living now is the past of that future, and it is AI that is controlling everything, and that's their simulation, and we're all living under their control. So yeah, my mind went places, but I think like you both were saying, like everything is a potential, everything is possible, and I do feel that we tune in and out of different timelines and different realities. So although maybe the AI, artificial intelligence controlling agenda, is not one that we are currently on the path towards, that could be a potential in a different timeline that is already taking place on a different Earth. But I think it's all very much connected, and again, I just feel that everything is possible. And yeah, I just wanted to say that because I really traveled back and forth in time to different potentials.
Well, if you look at,
I love.
yeah, I
Go
know.
ahead.
No, I was just gonna mention, because I mean, quantum jumping, I've been practicing that because with quantum jumping, you can literally go from where we are right now to literally embodying the version of ourselves that are living in the life that we want to experience in an instant. But it does take practice, because it does take a lot of focus, and it takes a lot of understanding what it is that you want. As long as we do not have resistance to anything, we can literally create, shift, like go anywhere we want. Like there's literally no limit. It's just we perceive, it's the conditioning and the programming that we don't have this ability. But yeah, it just, everything that you said just reminded me of quantum jumping, because we can go from one lifetime to another, or at least check in on it. If anybody watches The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper and Leonard they both work in that field, where, well, mostly Sheldon works with string theory. I think Leonard's a theoretical physicist, but they both talk about parallel universes and parallel realities, where when one version of ourselves is making a choice or a decision in this lifetime, our other one is making the opposite in order to have that fulfillment or that experience. That's why when we shift the way that we're looking at the world, and we're kind of seeing it as like, whatever label that you want to put on it, a movie, a game, or a play, a book that you want somebody to read, right? Once we are open to it and we let go of any resistance that we have to something new, this will go into neuroscience, because anytime we hear something that is unfamiliar, that we have not heard before, or it goes against our beliefs, the mind sees it as a threat. So that's why we get triggered. That's why we're like, why are you? And we're like finger pointing and thinking that the other person is to blame, right? But really it is just a reflection to show us what we're still resisting. So it's kind of like, instead of looking at somebody else or another situation, it's like, oh my God, why is this person showing up again? Oh my gosh, why is this situation happening? All we have to do is just look at it in a way that, without judgment, without labels, without anything, allowing it, surrendering it, and it'll shift quickly, and then we'll release that energy. That way we can manifest and create and quantum jump a lot quicker.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much that you said there, Erica, that I kind of want to touch on. But that, Miroslava, you also said a lot that I want to touch on. So let me to kind of shift a little bit back to what Miroslava was saying. Like, I'm so glad that you shared that story, because whenever you had asked what we believed about the simulation, what came to me was I remembered this dream that I had, where it's kind of similar to what you shared. It was like a lucid dream, and then I was seeing my surroundings kind of like the set of a movie, kind of that what's that, oh my God, that one movie, The Truman Show.
Oh yes,
something like that. Yeah, kind of like that. Where I'm looking around, it's like a set. Everything's a set, and then all of a sudden I feel I'm pulled up. I don't know, like things shifted and changed, and it became like I'm this table where the town itself is on the table, like Beetlejuice. Remember how they had like the town? I don't know if you guys saw that movie, but it was like this table, and everything was like a miniature little town. And it's like I started seeing these beings around me, surrounding this table, and like, they're aliens. They're not human looking at all. And all of a sudden I start, like, I'm being shifted out of the table, and I start growing and growing into the room, and I'm right there with them, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, at the time, like, there was like still a lot of fear, where I'm like, are you guys like, manipulating humanity? Is this what this is? And they were just looking at me peacefully and smiling, kind of saying, oh, you're one of us. You're over here, actually. And it's kind of that same thing where it's like my consciousness was projected into this set or this matrix, and I was actually on the ship with them at the same time. And then really, I don't know, that kind of was an experience in itself, kind of. But it's just funny that came up of like being in the experience itself, but also outside, and tapping into those different aspects of selves, or having different experiences, like you were saying to you with the AI and these different possibilities, and everything really is happening everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
Like we are just all over the place, and it's so crazy when you think of it. I've even remember spontaneously tapping into another reality or another universe, another version of me. Like there's one time I'm sitting at a conference table and I'm surrounded by different species of, I don't know, the different races. There's humans, there's like non-human ones, there's, and I'm just like on the table and everybody's just looking at me because I was in the middle of something, but I'm just like the human me just happened to pop in for a few seconds, and I'm like, what the heck is this and why am I here? And then that in itself, that was through meditation and really tapping into those abilities to quantum jump, like Erica was saying, and really tap into on that aspect more like that was more like remote viewing or by location and those kind of abilities, tapping into that. But then that in itself is interesting, one way to go down. But also, just like Erica was saying, how we can quantum jump into any version of ourselves and just start having what we want right now, and how that what keeps us from doing that, and we all have the ability to do that. And I think that's kind of what I was trying to bring forward with the whole lucid dream analogy, is that right now I'm caught up still in the drama, still like pretending like I'm not really this powerful being that can just quantum instantaneously do whatever I want to do or jump into whatever version of reality I want to jump into just because it's fun, without judging what's the right, what's not, without judgment, period. Not need to get into a thing about right or wrong, but yeah, just that's the crazy part, just like really starting to have those abilities to jump into different realities and embody what you want just by shifting your frequency and being aware that your thoughts, your perspective, your beliefs, like Erica was saying, whatever you believe to be true is true.
Thank you for sharing that. That's such a cool experience. You said it was a dream, the one where you saw those big beings and then you went like...
It was I don't even know what I was dreaming of, but it became a lucid dream. Yeah, so it was very vivid dream.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I was thinking, like, because I think the simulation thing, I was thinking, like, how is that possible? Like, is it real? What are the possibilities? Who is in control? And I think definitely that maybe there is a possibility that there are like these extraterrestrial races that are far more advanced than humanity is, that are in control of what is taking place. But then another potential, I guess I can say, that I feel is that the simulation is a creation of the people on this experience, on this reality. For example, like power structures, like the government, but the people that are far above the government, like the people that really have the power in this experience. And the way in which the simulation is created is with the information that is being thrown to the people. So it's like, yeah, like they can, I guess, like these people can say, well, your experience is this is what you feel. And then, for example, let's say, I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but like right now we are experiencing, I guess, poverty. You are poor. That's the experience that they want us to have as a society or as a collective. That's the code within the simulation. Let's put that as an example. And so the way that the simulation is spread and is charged or activated is through the information that is being given to us. So let's say they give that information to the mainstream media, and then the mainstream media passes that information on to us regular people. And when we start feeding that information, we start integrating that information, we start believing that information, we start believing that we are in fact poor and that this world is full of poverty. And then perhaps there is a different code. There is a code of maybe right now, let's put this as an example. Let's say that Russia is hostile, China is hostile, Mexico is hostile. They're all against the US. So they are feeding that information to the mainstream media. They are passing that information on to us, and now we believe it because that is all the information that we have available. And that's the information that is now integrated within our psyche. Yeah. And so perhaps the simulation doesn't have to be anything fancy or like an actual video game, but the simulation could be like this game that these people in power are playing with humanity, with the collective of this planet. And it is just something, a program, I guess, that is being fed with codes that they are putting in themselves. And the codes are, for example, like I was saying, like the mindset of poverty, or the mindset or the idea that these other countries are against a specific country, or that there is war in the world, that, you know, that there is all of those different things. So again, perhaps it doesn't have to be anything fancy like a simulation game or like a simulation thing, the way that we often think. That is actually far more simple, and it's just a program that is run with information that is penetrating our psyche, and it's becoming our reality, our experience. And it is becoming our experience because we are allowing that to be our experience. So it is a choice that we are making ourselves. But yeah, so that's just the thoughts that I was having as we were having this conversation.
I love what you said, because it really does come down to choice. And we can look at the simulation or life or the world as like Schrodinger's cat. When we are not observing something, it doesn't exist. It does not matter if we are seeing it or not. We cannot tell if something exists if we are not observing it. So it's like Schrodinger's cat, where we don't know if the cat is alive or dead until we open the box. We have no idea. So it's just like life. When we turn our attention away from something, that other thing no longer exists. So whether the government is in our world or not is depending on if we are writing the codes to the government being in our world. And in the reason of why a lot of us, you know, stick to our beliefs is because of memory. So everything that we are seeing now that looks the same is through memory. If we were to erase those memories, everything would look different. It would not be what you are seeing right now. So we have to understand is we do have control. And I know this is a controversial topic as well, because it kind of goes into, well, if this is experiencing for me, then it's real. It's like, yeah, it's for you. It's real. It's for sure real. But if I'm not observing it, it's not in my world. And I feel like this is where a lot of people can get triggered, as well as in like, hey, like I said earlier, I'm giving you an opportunity to heal or to look at it or to be more open-minded, because this is how our life can change. If we are staying in the same mindset, if we are staying and repeating the same memories and the same actions every single day and believing everything that's said to us, then that's going to become our world, but we don't have to let it be. So I always like to look at, you know, the theory of Schrodinger's cat, because that is life. We don't know if something exists or not. We only think it is because of memory or what someone has told us. But if we have not experienced it ourselves, or if we have no understanding of it, or we're choosing not to have it in our reality, it does not exist to us. But it does not mean that it doesn't exist to somebody else. So it's not like you're trying to discredit somebody else, or you're trying to be like, no, this is my way and this is your way and this is the only right way. No, it's like every way is right. It's either every way is right or every way is wrong. However way that you want to look at it. But yeah, it's just like, it really does depend. What codes are we wanting to inscript in our game, or which ones do we not? And like, it's, you know, balance, because there's some times where, you know, we've been on our path and you're like, you know what's going on in the world? Well, what's going on? I want to create something out there. I'm going to create a government. What's the government doing? Oh, this is where they're at. Okay, I'm going to go over here. Okay, what's my friends over here? What's this world over here doing? What am I wanting to look at? What am I wanting to observe? But yeah, we can definitely change it once we understand that, and we get past the resistance of, oh no, we have to see it this way because this is what we've been programmed to believe. So yeah, it can definitely be hard to take in at first. I totally understand, because I've spent years working on reprogramming and looking at triggers. So
yeah, I love what you've both said, and I think there's so much truth there with Miroslava, as far as what if it's not this like game, but it's something as simple as that. I do see it that way as well. Like, I think that you really kind of hit the nail on the head with the perception playground, where is the way I see it is like our reality is what our perception is. You know, we're able to create our reality. We have our individual reality depending on our own perception by in energetic vibration, what we're vibrating with. And it's very easy to like we have our own personal experience, our own personal reality, but we're also co-creating bigger realities, bigger worlds. We are coming together to co-create this experience on Earth right now. So it's very easy to start then change or shift the narrative when you start, like you said, manipulating the information that's given and trying to, you know, if you're playing it from that bigger perspective, really manipulating what is said or not said, and then creating reality from there, because this is what the people are picking up and are starting to believe, because that's what they're exposed to. And like you said, that's the only information that we have, so we go off of that. It becomes, we adopt it as a part of our truth, and then we start living out that reality. But then a lot of that happens unconsciously. But when we start, like Erica's saying, being more conscious about our choices, and we start realizing that we can actually opt out of that programming, we can actually opt out of this program that's being constantly fed. And the thing is that our energy we affect each other. Like the information, there's a constant energetic exchange between you and everything else around you. Like there's no separation, it's all one. So knowing that, being more aware of where you're being influenced, how you're being influenced, to believe, to think, to feel, that affects what your experience is. And you can choose to shift your focus away from that and choose what you want to experience. And I think a lot of us get caught up, or we're taught into, oh, this is what's real, this is what's right, and we have to stick to these rule books of reality, these rule books of behavior or of being. But once we if we throw out the books and realize that in this moment right now, I can choose to have a different reality from that. I don't have to be tapped into all those terrible things that are happening across, you know, like it's, and like you said, Erica, it can get a little dicey and people can get a little triggered where that's going. And so I can kind of definitely understand where you were going there, because, you know, you're still operating from, I feel a lot of people are still operating from this belief that we're all living the same reality. This is one world and we're all living it. And then how can you not be concerned with what's going on over here, over there, and everything else, when in truth, you lose yourself if you're just a focus. You lose your power if you're focused on everything outside of you, where each one of us, we're our most powerful when we're connected to self, when we're connected to our own energy and more conscious of our energy and what our choices are, and going from there, and then really shifting our realities. And kind of what I was saying earlier too is recognizing that other people are going to show up a certain way depending on how you perceive them. And that's kind of what I wanted to explain earlier, where it's like when we start shifting what we believe and we start shifting how we perceive other people, and we start letting go of judgments and just surrendering and being present and intentional with how we're showing up and how we are choosing to believe the world is, the world is going to reflect that back to us. People are going to reflect that back to us. If you start thinking, though, that people are actually good and loving and you know, have a better perception, because I do think too, Miroslava, going to manipulating the masses, or like the simulation itself, there's this idea that humans are fucking terrible. Right? There's humans are like the worst. Like this belief, I see it all the time. Like they're full of anger and hate and greed and this and that, and there's all these stories about humanity as a whole, but that's not necessarily the truth that you need to tap into. You can perceive people as kind of like, you know, like you do like a child. We're doing the best we can. We're learning how to navigate the dark and the light and all of this. And there's also a lot of compassion and beauty and you know, this amazing, like being human can be such an amazing experience. If you choose to start seeing it that way, then that's what it becomes. That's what the world starts reflecting back to you. And I think that's kind of what spirituality is for me. It's like this journey back home of unplugging from the matrix, right? Unplugging from the simulation, unplugging from everybody everything outside of yourself, and really kind of restructuring your beliefs, restructuring your stories, restructuring your frameworks of what reality is from within, from what your truth is, what you actually are experiencing, kind of like Erica said, as opposed to just sitting around waiting for somebody to tell you what's true, to really come from a place of inner wisdom and what you discern to be truth within your body, within your heart, within your soul, within yourself. And because we all have that ability to discern truth and create our realities from there. And yeah, that honestly, it does bring me back to that the Aquarian Leo thing, where it's recognizing we're connected to we're a collective, we're all connected, and being mindful of living life, living this reality from that perspective, the collective, and our, realizing that our thinking and the way that the information is set up and how we're all wired and connected and exchanging information creates our reality, being more mindful of that, and but also having that individual experience of I'm having an individual personal experience as well. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, that's so amazing. It's very interesting. Yes, the fact that, we are indeed all connected, but at the same time, it's like I am having my own experience, and that's what shapes my own reality and my world. So it's definitely a balance there. And yeah, it's so amazing everything that you shared, and I totally agree with you, Alegna. Erica, you're very quiet.
I was just thinking about different things where it's kind of like, well, there's actually two things that I could say. One, it's like the yogis always say, if you want to help save the world, go within, and you will see why. And then there's another one that Dolores Cannon was saying, and it kind of goes back to, the whole, just because we don't, it's like we aren't aware that there's an inner world, like there's a world within the earth, right? So this is why, and it kind of, there was a section in Dolores Cannon's book where it's like, the reason why we're having to be intervened in some areas, whether you want to call it ETs are helping us or divine intervention is happening and the world is shifting, is because there's also worlds within this one. There are beings within this one. Just because we aren't aware doesn't mean it's not happening. And it kind of goes back to like, just because, it's not exactly happening in my world, it's not happening in yours. However, it goes back to what you were saying with, and like we have been saying, is like everything is connected. So if we blow up one thing, it blows up the all. So that's why it's like, it's hard to explain, and you kind of have to see what's in my mind in order to like see it. But I'll try to explain it the best that I can. It's kind of like, yes, because we are all one with source, we are all an extension from the all, or the whole. We all have our own individual worlds that are also interlinked, right? So just because like we don't know that something exists doesn't mean that it's not happening, but it's not happening in ours, but it's still happening. So it does affect the whole. So when we raise our level of consciousness, or we're perceiving something differently, it affects the all. No matter where anyone is existing in any part of the galaxy, in any part of the world, because in the world, out of the world, because it's all a design anyway. But yeah, it's like, this is why it's the paradox, right? That's the contradiction that we always talk about, because life is a contradiction until you get past all of it and you drop everything. And that's when you go into like the full enlightenment, and you're like in the highs. But it's just like, it's so hard to explain in words. But once you kind of get the gist of everything, you can kind of see how everything is interlinked, yet at the same time not. But yeah.
Yeah. And just to everyone that is listening to us, just know that it is a process. And, whether you believe this is a simulation, or maybe just a program or a matrix, a projections playground, however you perceive this, know that it is possible for you to awaken and for you to regain control. And actually, one of the things that I was thinking about when I was hearing the two of you talk is that at the end of the day, the mastermind of this simulation is our consciousness. It is our mind. It is a it is the unity of the mind, the brain, and the higher mind, which is like God. So definitely you have control over this experience, and know that you'll get to eventually you will get to a state of mind, state of being, in which you will become the mastermind consciously of this experience. But like we've been sharing, and we also talked about this a little bit in Alegna's podcast, is that this journey takes time. It is a process, and it can be very painful, letting go of projections of others and ideas and belief systems that have been imprinted in our being, and they are running deep within ourselves. It's generational as well. So letting go of those beliefs is very hard, and it is painful, and it takes time, but you will get there eventually. And I think that whenever we do have those highs, we hit peak in those moments, I do believe that when we hold on to that moment, even if it's just for a few seconds, we get a taste of our potential as the masterminds of this, not only, if we can call it a simulation, but like of this universe. Because even the universe, what the universe is a projection of our belief. So I even believe that we can be the masterminds of the universe as a whole, the multiverse. So yeah, just be patient with yourself. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I was like, you can tell that we're all together again because we've literally been talking for like 2 hours.
Yes.
But
yes, and actually we can end it here.
Yeah.
Alegna, is there anything else that you want to share with us?
Honestly, I feel like this was such an amazing conversation. Like, so much came up that my cup feels really full, and I feel like I need to process a lot of what we said. But it's kind of, we built up on the same concepts and the same ideas that it all comes down to deprogramming and making a conscious choice as to what you're focusing on and what you want your reality to be. And like you said, what we do know to be true is us, that our consciousness now, that's what's real. That's what's that's always what's going to keep us centered in this confusing, paradoxical, weird experience that we're having, where it can be so easy to discern what's true, what's not true, and it can be very easy to get caught up in other people's fears and in other people's stories, and just even like you said, Miroslava, earlier, distracted in our day-to-day, distracted by how we're living our lives, whether we want to be just numbing our emotions out, or just stuck in mental chatter. Like, all of that, it comes down to conscious choice and being more and more aware of what you're aligning with and what you're allowing. I think it comes down to that, like, really what we allow in letting go of so much, just allowing whatever is present with us right now, whatever wants to come through and flow. And I think I'm gonna end it on this thing. I don't remember what we were saying, Miroslav. At one point we were saying how everything, or maybe it was Erica, how everything's fluid and always like interchanging. Like, what came to me as far as like what reality is like the psychedelic experience. Like, I don't know if I think we've had conversations where we talked about mushrooms and how I know whenever, like, during a trip when it's very visual and it's just like, that's what it looks like, just energy is just changing form and colors and just warping in and out, and how reality is just a really weird projection of that. It's like that's getting projected onto the screen. It's like all these colors and shapes and this and things like morphing in and out of reality to create an infinite amount of possibilities, and to create things that are depending on what angle you're looking at it from, could be completely opposite things, but still both be true. In holding the paradox of reality. So what we know is that what's true is where you are right now in this present moment. Your consciousness is aware, and everything else is just a very interesting journey that we get to fully experience. And the more you allow and surrender to it, the more you have, the more you expand, the more you experience, the more you get to see and feel.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautifully said. And yeah, I think that is a good way for us to close this episode. And I'm just going to add something else, and I think this is something that I think I mentioned this in your podcast, Alegna, or maybe it was here. I don't know, but today you are going to be making over 35,000 decisions. Be sure that at least 10% of those decisions that you are making are conscious. And you will see that when you actually consciously and intentionally do things, choose to do things, you will see your experience shifting, and you will see yourself becoming more and more of a mastermind of this simulation matrix projections playground thing that we are living in. So yeah, I think this is gonna be it for this episode. Erica, quickly, is there anything else that you want to add before we complete this?
Only thank you, Alegna, for coming on with us. It has been such a pleasure to have us all three together again. But yeah, that's really all I have to say, because I could go on forever on this topic, but I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. That's going to have to be a part 2 or part 3 and 4. But anyways, Alegna, quickly also let people know where they can find your podcast, your social media, your website services. Let us know where to find you.
Thank you both so much for having me on here. It's been amazing. And yeah, everybody who's listening, you can connect with me on my website, alegnamoss.com. You'll see my social media links, and my podcast, Divine and Human. It's available on Spotify and Apple podcasts as well, and you can see the link to that on the website. And hang out with me on Instagram. I'm mostly on there at Alegna Moss as well.
Yes, and all of that information is going to be linked in the description of this episode. So definitely go check out the episode that we recorded for the Divine and Human podcast. We had a long conversation. It was very juicy and full of great perspectives. So definitely go check that out. And yeah, so that's going to be it for today. Thank you all so much for being here. Remember to share this podcast, subscribe, download the episode, and also leave us your feedback. Leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Let us know what you thought of this episode and all the episodes that we have in our library. But again, thank you all so much for being here, and we'll talk to you again in another episode.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.